All right. Danna, thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
See, that's the sober double fisting right there. Diet Coke with a vape.
Necessary for
Yeah.
the lifestyle.
Only way we could make it any more cliche is if that was an energy drink instead of a Diet Coke.
I didn't have any on hand or I would have had a monster.
Of course. See, I'm completing the other cycle where instead it's mineral water. So I get
That
it.
a few more years sober and I'll get there.
Okay. So speaking of sober, how much time do we got sober? What's your kind of chemical test pilot drug of choice? And give me an overview of the using history.
Sure. 4.5 years, give or take a few days, I'm sure. If I make it, which I plan to. 5 years in January. Drug of choice, amphetamine.
Yeah.
I mean, I like a lot of other drugs and I've been strung out on a lot of other drugs, but meth is like was my best friend for a lot of years. What was the third question?
So just overview of the using history. So you got, coming up on 5 years. I know this isn't your first time trying to get
It's
sober.
not, and I couldn't even. I probably have more fingers, uh, less fingers and toes than times I've tried to get sober. It's been a really long journey. Like I think the first time I was strung out and causing havoc and misery in other people's lives was when I was 14. So a long time ago. I don't want to say how old I am, but I will because
That's
I'm
okay.
proud to be this age and sober. I turn 50 in a few months.
Jeez.
So 50 and 4.5 years sober, which means it's been a long road, over 30 years. Yeah. So my first treatment was at rehab was at 14. I was strung out on meth and making everybody's lives miserable. Yeah, it's just been a long road. I kept moving back and forth to Virginia, where my parents had eventually moved, and then back to California. And, just that whole thing like, oh, fuck, I've fucked up my life again. Need to get clean. That everybody knows that feeling when you're like, oh my God, I'm strung out again. Like, you
Hmm.
really, really plan on that not happening. You want to drink and use, like a normal person. And that just terrible, what's the book say? Comprehensible demoralization, where you
Yep.
just look at the mirror and you're like, I'm strung out again. So I would move back to my parents, thinking that was my safe space in Virginia, and then get strung out on heroin because heroin's great on the East Coast. And then I got to get away from here and move back to California, strung out on meth again, and that cycle just continued and continued for a lot of years. And like I always hear people say, like, I think I can, just drink wine or I think I can do this. And I've literally tried everything. I'm like, throw it at me. I've tried it. What do you think is you could try? But we all
Exactly.
have our own journey and some of us my my dog, the pig, is trying to uh get inside of this video. Not
It's
gonna
okay.
happen.
My Frenchie's right over here on the chair, so it's just a
Maybe
thing.
they want to say hi.
Oh, misfit. Oh, the little piglet.
Um where was I at? Yeah, I've just tried everything and we all have our own journey and a lot of people die, in their
Yeah.
journey and don't make it back. But I had mine and I tried everything. I have tattoos that say no more and then I get strung out again and joke while I was high that I was gonna have it say no period, more exclamation. And tried different drugs, tried just drinking, tried different husbands. I burned down 3 marriages and uh judge nudge, I've tried everything
Hmm.
and finally I my journey took me here and
Hmm.
I'm really happy about it.
So tell me a little bit about, like, I know what you mean by the insanity, right? But
Yeah.
obviously, part of the thing that we try to do on this podcast is address all that in the weeds shit. And, when you talk about, hey, listen, I'd be in California and then this isn't working out. And so I'd go back to Virginia and then I get strung out on heroin. And, there's that logical component on paper, right? Like,
Yep.
okay, at this point, I should have gotten it. But then the mind plays these funny little games. What were some of those games that it would play that would keep you kind of going back and forth in the cycle outside of just, I can do this substance or that?
Like there's something wrong with me. I'm broken. I'm just never going to get it. I'm a person that just won't get it. Consistently, the finger was pointed outward at every thing and person, right? Like my husband's
Yep.
a horrible person, so that's why I got strung out again. Or this job sucks, so that's why I got strung out again. Or I broke a nail, that's why I got strung out again. It's like, uh, yeah, it's just the fingers pointed out, and it's a series of unfortunate events, and it's crazy because I truly believed that all those things were happening to me. And you talk to people who are um, newly getting sober or still strung out, and 5 minutes into the conversation they're like, oh, my car got towed,
Yep.
oh this, oh that. They have a series of unfortunate events happening. And I get it because I've been there, but once you get sober you're like, oh, I was inviting all of this into my life. So my brain really, dude, we're literally insane. Like when we first
Absolutely.
come in, the glasses that I was wearing were that everything in the world was a problem and it was all happening to me. But like after 30 some years, when it just never ending, and you finally go, I'm the common denominator. I was the one in Virginia. I was the one, at the motel on Beach Boulevard. I was the one, I'm the common denominator. Like
Hmm.
after three husbands, I'm like, oh, I might be the problem,
Yeah.
you know?
And it's crazy because, coming from a clinical lens, I hear things all the time from very scholarly people talking about how, like, I was listening to a podcast and I don't remember what the doctor's name was, but she was talking about how, like, she's really trying to change the stigma of addiction, that this isn't a addiction of, bad behavior and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I know what you're saying, but if you know what it's like to be an addict, we have absolute fucking carnage in people's lives. And the worst part is we don't even own up to it. We just twist it and say it's your fault. And that just keeps everything going. So it's like, I get what they're saying, but we do a lot of damage.
We do a lot of damage, like a lot more than we know. And I've been when I first got sober in the rooms, like I wasn't able to see it. Then I go through the steps and I'm able to start seeing what I've caused. But then once you stay sober enough and start sponsoring people and making friends, um and then getting to see, when your friends go out and get high, or if they die, you get to see how it affects you. Like you're heartbroken and the chaos, like, hey, we were homies for years and now like you're just bringing chaos and misery into your life, and I'm missing out on the fun times we had. And then your family's calling me crying and stressed out, and you get to see it firsthand, from the other side. And
Hmm.
it's really heartbreaking.
Speaking of the steps and program, because I know you've been in it for quite a while. I know
Yeah.
me and you have had conversations, and obviously, we've run in some of the same circles. And so you've been around everybody from the big book thumpers to the fellowship people to the meeting makers, make it people, and all that stuff. When you say steps, program, have that awakening, what does that look like to you?
I mean, this time, every sponsor has their own little things. And I believe like your sponsor can only show you what they were shown. And
Right.
really, I know people, if they're watching this or if they're new, they're like, don't say the God word, but it could be God, it could be spirit of the universe, it could be the collective consciousness, whatever you want to call it. Like
Yeah.
that is really what it is. It's not about being a big book thumper, and we all go through phases. We get ego, even normies, like we
Yep.
get ego, we think we're right about something, then we have an experience and it changes and we have new opinions. Like the 12 steps are exactly the same in multiple programs, and not just well, I was going to say not just addiction based, but in gambling and food and
Yeah.
sex and everything. And it is literally scientifically proven that these steps work. They've done
Yes.
studies to show that people who do Alcoholics Anonymous stay sober more than any other type of treatment that's out there. Um, and there's scientific reasoning behind each step of why it
Hmm.
works, but I don't ask anymore. But for me, it's get a sponsor is the first thing. I didn't believe this thing would work, but my sponsor told me just believe that I believe. And, when you're broken enough, I was willing to kind of do whatever she suggested. And, whether some people that's let's sit down and work all the steps right now, hit your knees the first time you're meeting your sponsor and do a third step prayer, start your
Right.
fourth step on day 2 sober. They all ways can work. you know.
Yeah.
For me, it was I actually wrote, I put pen to paper. I didn't type in my iPhone. I put pen to paper for each step based on my sponsor's suggestions and um, did a thorough fourth step, did a fifth step with a sponsor. And now today, I pray every morning and every night. At night, I kind of review what my day looked like and if there's any amends I need to make. I usually know throughout the day, I call it my soul sickness, like you get this
Hmm.
icky feeling, and address that. And it's just a journey, man. Like people think this is the only right way, this is the only wrong way, or this is the only right way, that's wrong, but it's not. It's just like course correcting every day and just staying in it.
Yeah.
And the amount of effort we put towards getting that dope, it's like just put a sliver of that into recovery every day. I recently heard people talking about how, oh my God, why do people, when they get sober, it's their whole personality?
Right.
And I'm like, because getting dope was our whole personality, So, like, do you want us dead and strung out, or do you want us,
Yeah.
being recovery based and like happy and, contributing to things instead of taking? So,
Well, we're all or nothing people, right? And it's one of
yeah,
those few times where it's like, and I get the clinical aspect of things, but it's like we're an all or nothing person. And it's so interesting how, especially the program is like, cool, be all or nothing. And then
yeah.
that's where the years and the pain come in. We're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Do I have to do all of it right now? It's like, oh,
All
now
of
you
it.
want to be in a minute.
Yeah. Can I
God.
take tomorrow off?
Yeah. Well, going back to what you were saying about the sponsor, and I'm this is fresh in my mind because on our YouTube channel, I put a video up, and it was somebody talking about their sponsor, blah blah blah, and somebody comments on there about, oh, I had a narcissistic sponsor who was saying that this was the only way, and that was part of the reason I left, blah blah blah. That's besides the point. The reason why I bring up that comment is that one of the things is that we say, hey, listen, it's not that this is the only way. There are lots of ways to do it. However, you hear a rhetoric over and over again from people that have been experiencing it that 12 steps was the only thing that worked for them. And so when you go in there, you have to wrestle with that. Okay, this isn't the only way, but the people who use like I use are saying that this is the only thing. They tell me to get a sponsor. And then the sponsor over here is saying, here's what you got to do. What was that like for you, kind of wrestling with that? Because you've had to have other sponsors in your lifetime. What was that like for you, wrestling with that?
I have, and I've had big book thumper sponsors where I used to have to walk into a meeting with my big book and like sit in the very front. And we would get people on the third step like they used to do back, almost
Mhm.
100 years ago. You do the third step right there, 1, 2, and 3, and then start your fourth step immediately, like day 2 sober or whenever you got your sponsor. Um, I don't I'm not, I personally couldn't care less. Like
Yeah.
when I have come into the rooms, it's like I'm desperate and I don't care who you are, what you're telling me to do. I'm just going to do it. And that's kind of what I've done every time. And then, like you said, each time I stayed sober for a period of time. And then I let that earworm get in that's like, oh, you can drink like a lady,
Yeah.
and it's so funny because we come into the rooms saying, I'm different. I don't relate to all of these people. I'm totally different. And then when we get in there and the addiction starts talking to us, we're like, I'm not different. I'm the same as all the people out there. I can drink like them,
Hmm.
like you're saying, extremes, just flip flop. But I always, so two things, like if you're not stoked on your sponsor, like who freaking cares? It's like just do the steps, get it done, because just do it. You know what I mean? You could be keep searching, or you're gonna find somebody who thinks amazing. And then once you get to know them, it's like Oz, you're gonna see behind the curtain. We're all just a bunch of crazy addicts, alcoholics, whatever you want to call it, and just doing the best we can do. Like the person has managed to stay sober and is living a life that's like worthy of a good human.
Yeah.
Just do your steps. You can always get another sponsor down the road and work the steps again. It's a journey. And the other thing is, it goes back to me saying, your sponsor, I believe your sponsor can only show you what they did.
Right.
It's the 12 steps is the only thing that's worked for me. For me is like the key word, right? There are people who find church, find different ways. I will say there have been studies done and they've looked at percentages, and the 12 steps, um, as they take you through from 1 to 12 have
Hmm.
been shown to keep people sober much longer and have more fulfilling lives and not go back than anything else that they've looked at.
Right.
But, it's the only thing that's worked for me. And it's like, people don't want to say God, but I don't know a single drug addict who wasn't in the back of a cop car saying, God, I'll do anything, or
Hmm.
telling your parents, I'll do anything. And then, like, this person who's managed to not get high or not drink is sitting there saying, okay, try this. And you're like, I'm not liking your vibes. It's like, just do it. That's all it takes is just do it. Put pen to paper. They don't have to be your best friend.
Yeah. And
If
it's
you get a
even
friend.
from like a clinical perspective, and I'm sure you've had to have had these moments too, and I did when I was using, even if it wasn't like a God get me out of this, I know that there were certain, I'll call them existential questions that I would ask when I was loading, like, staring at myself in the mirror, strung out yet again, and like, is this really all there is? Like, just those kind of questions. Or people are saying, oh, there's no God and fuck him and blah blah blah. It's like, how can he be pissed at something that doesn't exist? And it's not my place to say what you should and should not believe in, but these are those things. It's like, whether you agree or disagree with the God component is irrelevant to the fact that there's a yearning, question, need there that comes out whether you like it or not.
Agree. And also, let's say there's no God or any sort of higher power. Like, we're all living community based and relying on each other, in our uh, neighborhoods, in our cities, in our towns, and that's a greater thing that we were not contributing to, and in
Mm-hmm.
fact, we're like creating chaos. So even if your God, higher power, whatever, can be like giving over to the greater good of my neighborhood, my city, my town, my family, all these different units. Like,
Yeah.
you can use that too. We're not participating in that. When my family would invite me to Thanksgiving, I would be like, what are you making? What's the sides? Is there going to be a whole turkey? Who's going to be there? What kind of appetizer are you going to have? And it was just like, what's in it for me? And it's a perfect example of now, if somebody invites me to Thanksgiving, I'm like, what can I bring?
Yeah.
Like, do you need help? Do you want me to show up early? Can I help you with anything, the weeks before? Can I make something? It's like, I'm not trying to get things out of it. And that's what another thing the 12 steps do, even to contribute to society. It's not like, what can I get out of it? This is all happening to me. It's like, how can I contribute and be a better person? So,
Absolutely. And that's that whole selfishness and self-centeredness is the root of our trouble kind of a thing, right? And
yep.
even for the listeners out there who have zero desire to do any kind of a 12-step whatever, if you look kind of like what you're saying, right? Like, look back on your experience when you showed up, were you more concerned with what you could get out or what you could put in? It's a very simple question. And if you ask that continually, and same thing when oh, it's your fault and your fault and your fault, at a certain point, there's got to be that little bit of like, hey, listen, I'm a bit of a selfish asshole here. And regardless of where you stand on anything else, that can't continue if I plan on getting better, sober, choose your terminology. Now, when we talk about getting sober and doing all that, one of the things I try to bring in here is to talk about the other aspects, because as I'm sure you've been around long enough to know, you can't 12 step away everything. We all got shit. We all have some things, right? So one area that I do want to go into is the psychosis, the mental health component, because in this world, right, mental health is a big topic. And especially when we talk about that, that's always a barrier. People always have opinions about that. Tell me a little bit about what that was like for you coming in with the whole mental health voices component.
Yeah. And I think that's what's so beautiful about the program is, like, when you start going to meetings and meeting people, they all have kind of their unique thing, and you can be like, oh, I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
And my thing, and I've been able to help other newcomers through it, is that I was in, as you alluded to, I was in like severe psychosis. And yeah, I spent a good amount of 2 years, wandering, like a woman who has had a very successful career and made money. I owned a house at the time and had money in the bank, and I was on the streets, I was the dirty girl standing in the middle of the street screaming at the lights, and I believed it was real. And if you haven't really experienced that, the tactile, auditory, visual hallucinations, which, to be perfectly honest, on The Secret, like, I don't know if it wasn't real. You know what I mean? I had to come to that conclusion. I'm like, it was probably real, and there probably were people following me, and I was being, gang stalked and what all the other things that go along with all of that. But I called it sound harassment. Um, that was my unique experience, and the 12 steps took me out of it. And it doesn't always, to be honest. I do still take medication for it, um, which isn't even specifically for that. So, doctors, like go see a doctor. You may need some medication to help with it. The medicine didn't get rid of the voices completely, it made them quiet down. And
Okay.
the 12 steps got rid of it completely. And I just was in a beautiful place where my sponsor had experienced the same thing. And she just kept assuring me, like, I'm safe. And a lot of people in psychosis and drug addiction together, their voices are mean and commenting. I've seen this consistently, commenting on our actions and the
Mhm.
things that we're doing. And when I stopped doing those actions and living that way, and they would make fun of me when I would, walk past people, and they'd be like, they know you're strung out, or they would say that they were coming to my motel room and gonna kill me. But like when I stopped living in motel rooms and stopped getting high and stopped doing a lot of things they would make fun of me for. And when I say make fun, I mean so mean that I spent a lot of time in tears. And I was living a life that I didn't have to feel ashamed of anymore. It's like the voices could say anything and it didn't bother me because I was starting to become proud of the way I was living and the person that I was representing. And when those two kind of hit a point where, like, I don't have shame anymore about the way I'm living, so say whatever you want, the voices got quiet enough. You know what I mean? Where,
It's so interesting to hear because when you talk about the 12 steps, right? Like obviously there's a spiritual component and people who either don't know or aren't familiar, they're going to go, oh, there's so somebody else saying that Jesus or whatever took it away and they know their ear snaps shut. But that second part, even if that's not your cup of tea, I think that's so important to understand. It's like,
yeah,
okay, maybe you don't buy the God thing. Maybe you don't buy any of that stuff. At the very least, it's a logical thought, right? The voices say mean shit. They
yep,
constantly comment on what you're saying. 1 + 1 = 2. If we stop doing this stuff and start acting better, what the hell are they going to talk about? Because it's usually the reverse. People are like, oh, I keep doing all this shit because of the voices instead of
which I
going
did
the other way.
for a long time. Yeah. I was living like a whole life and started to feel happy with the person I saw in the mirror. And I was like, go ahead, make fun of me because I'm not ashamed anymore. I also, going back to the whole God thing, higher power, whatever, like, I love using this analogy. Like, if I have to go pee, I get up and go to the bathroom to go pee. If I want to walk my dogs, I can walk my dogs. If I want to go eat something, I can do it. I can make all of these decisions in my life and actually take action and make it happen. And I wanted to quit getting high. I got to stop doing this. I never wanted to stop drinking wine. I never wanted to stop, doing a little coke here and there, but I knew I had to either quit methamphetamine, and I knew that I had to quit doing heroin those two times that I was really strung out. And I knew it, just like I knew I needed to go to the bathroom and go pee, but I couldn't stop. And so
Right.
I'm like, how come for years I could stop? And then all of a sudden, when I just opened my heart to the idea that there's a power greater than me and I'm going to let it be in control, like, it worked.
I'm curious in that process, right? So you got with your sponsor this time, you started doing the work, you started doing the little behavioral things, but obviously it's been a process to where you said, "Hey, medications helped a little bit, kind of turn down the dial," but really
Yeah.
it was through the end of the 12 steps. As
Uh-huh.
you were going through that process, I know you mentioned your sponsor would say you're safe, you're okay. What was it like for you as you were in the interim, like in that middle ground, getting to the point where then the 12 steps then took the rest of the voices away? How did you deal with it?
I mean, I didn't believe any of it would work. I just was doing it because
Okay.
she was a beautiful person and she had told me about the hell she had been through. And
She
I
being your sponsor.
my sponsor. She was such a beautiful person and so kind and so loving. And the person that she would describe, like, the two didn't make sense in my brain. So I'm like, if she could live that way and become this person, then I'm just going to try it. Like,
Right.
and I was like, prove it to me then, And I just didn't believe. And then slowly you start to have things proven to you. Like, you have to have an experience in order to believe. I think the biggest thing was I had um, one thing in particular that I felt so much shame around. And I told my sponsor about it. I don't think I had even written it on my fourth step. I just, your sponsor's like, anything you're leaving out? And she said, I promise you with everything in me that there's going to be a day where you will be grateful that you went through this. And I was like, there's no way. And I kept doing the steps and I got a sponsee and we did her fifth step and she shared almost the exact story through tears. She didn't write it and I was grateful and I was like, wow, this thing, oh, I have chills right now. This thing really works. Like everything that my sponsor said, just trust me, believe that I believe, happened. And I got to watch it unfold. And it's so crazy because it works and you see people doubting it and you're like, I was there. How do I get that person from doubt to belief? And some people, it just takes a longer time and a lot more experiences out there, to get to a point where they're willing to try something.
Yeah.
But you know what? We trust and believe that the dope man's going to show up at the corner on time. We trust and believe that the drug that they say they're selling to us is what it is. Like we trust and believe all these things in addiction. Why not trust and believe in this one thing that could possibly change your life for the better and make you feel like a whole person instead of a piece of Swiss cheese,
My favorite is always when the dope man would say, I'm 5 minutes away. He was
Oh,
never
yeah.
5 minutes away, but I
Three
believed him every
hours
time.
later, 3 hours later. I know. That's why you had to become a person that got to ride in the dope man's car to go pick up, because then you were in the car with the dope man.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
And I know your sponsor, and I know that she had her own mental health stuff too. So I'm sure that had to have come into with that, self-disclosure about her kind of sharing some of that stuff as well.
Here's another thing kind of on trusting my sponsor. So I remember a story she told me that she had knotted out on her leg and got compartment syndrome. And they had to do a slice up the entire back of her leg. And she's like, I never even took any narcotics for it. She's like, ibuprofen works. So you are fucking crazy. If I ever hurt myself, I'm going to take narcotics as prescribed from the doctor. There's no way. And she's like, trust me, just trust it. And I'm like, never. The years go by, right? I just 3 weeks ago broke my ankle, a horrible break. It's called an avulsion fracture. I went to the emergency room and they offered me narcotics. And I was like, no, I'm good. Like, I'm okay. And I took 800 milligrams of ibuprofen and it works. And I haven't needed anything. And I'm not saying don't take painkillers, just another example of the shit that my sponsor has said just keeps coming true. And I didn't believe it. And at 4.5 years, I'm like, oh, there's another thing that she said. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And for everyone listening, listen to your doctor, listen to the medical advice, blah, blah, blah. But we are saying that it is possible that you don't have to take narcotics for everything.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all for take medication as your doctor prescribes. I'm not saying don't. It's just another example. Didn't believe 800 milligrams of ibuprofen was sufficient, and it was.
Yeah. Well, and it's always funny too when we talk about pain medication, because I've had some people too that sponsee of mine had like a hip replacement surgery when he had probably like 6 months sober or something like that, and like he was in a shit ton of pain, and I remember he was taking the medications as prescribed, and he was sitting there, he's like, man, these things just don't hit like they used to. I'm like, no shit, because you're actually in pain and you're actually taking the prescribed dose. It's not supposed to get you high.
Feel them when you're in true pain,
No.
Yeah.
No.
I'm all for it. I say take painkillers if you need them. I just thought it was funny that 4.5 years later, something she had told me, and I was like, oh, she's right again.
Yep.
And
it's hard, and I get the people coming in and like, because when I talk to people about the program, right, there's a few gripes outside of the God issue. That's always a trump card. Everyone hates that. Yep. The other, it's things like, oh, well, I'm subverting my will, and basically, this sponsor's little pet that I'm supposed to do whatever, right? And we who have been around for a little bit, we work under that presumption of like, dude, how's your thinking working for you? Like, even if it's only a little bit, right? But then you also mentioned about the sponsor and how they can play such a pivotal role. And I think it's challenging because I've always had the presumption you were looking for a teacher. If they become your friend, fan-fucking-tastic. but you
Yeah,
don't
that's
pick one trying to have right off into the sunset with. You pick
nope.
someone who's going to help you stay sober and be a teacher. And yes, those oftentimes bloom into those, relationships.
We're lucky if we make friends here.
How did we find the passion and the direction that we ended up going then?
In my job, I always loved skincare. I've been getting Botox and filler and facial since I was 25. And it was something that I always wanted to do. I want to be an esthetician. I want to work in skincare. And my parents were like, heck no, computers, money. And so I did. It's so weird to say. I always say web developer, but the industry has changed so much
Yeah.
that there's a million different career choices. But back then it was web developer. It was like two of us building your websites. And so I did that for 25, 30 years and I loved it so much. The program has promises in it and it doesn't promise new jobs or cars or things. It promises like a life beyond your wildest dreams, which means you're like live an authentic life. You feel like a whole person. You learn to love yourself again. I felt like Swiss cheese when I came in, and now I feel like a whole person. And you learn that the value is in helping other people and giving. And once you stop worshiping, drugs and money and things that can get you drugs, like the whole world opens up to you. And
Right.
so I wasn't making career choices based off money. It was like, what's in my heart and what can I give back to this world in a
Right.
small business, you
Well,
know?
and I bring that topic up only because while we know obviously the cash and prizes, they come along with sobriety. That is not what we chase at the beginning, but they oftentimes come along.
Yes.
It's that attraction rather than promotion piece where even though we know that they all come, the newcomers, what are the things that they see, right? They see us having beautiful families and having careers and,
And
some
French.
and Frenchies because they're the best little piglets in the world. And
Yes.
that's why when I bring it up, it's not, I kind of was like, okay, well, how'd we get there? Because there's a lot of people when they're newly sober going, where the hell am I going to go? What am I going to do? And that is such a interesting topic for people when it comes to the recovery process.
It sounds so crazy, and I didn't want to believe it myself. But if you put your recovery first, stay in the treatment center, stay in the sober living, just go in the direction that the universe unfolds and truly put sobriety first, like it all comes and it's freaking crazy. And I don't know why, but it's true. And I can only say that because I've witnessed it time and time and time again. People in getting out of treatment, they're like, have been flown to California and they're like, where am I going to live? What's going to happen? And I'm like, just trust the universe is going to bring something to you. And sometimes I'm like, Danna, it's bullshit. Don't keep saying that. And then I'm proven again. Like I get the phone call the next day, like, oh, somebody had a room for rent and it's this much and it accepts dogs and it's walking distance to, where I'm going to be working. It's like you just trust the process,
Yeah.
you know.
And I'd
And
argue, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, even a bad situation as a newcomer or early in recovery where you don't have a place to live or you don't know what's going on is better probably than the situation that you came from.
100%.
I think that's why people are always like, you're so positive, which I haven't been very positive. I've been vibrating at a lower frequency at this broken ankle because I've had to be in self. But people always say, you're so positive and you're so happy all the time. And it's because when you've had 100 crazy voices yelling mean things to you for years, it's like, that's the other option. So, like, who cares what happens now? Everything is a gift.
Oh, yeah. I've always said that once you get on the other side of it, obviously, being an addict or an alcoholic is like a superpower in the sense that there are so many things, but like the whole COVID thing, right? When that was happening, everyone's panicking. I'm sitting there going, is it really that bad? Like, all the shit I've been through, like, is
Nothing,
it really, you know?
nothing feels that bad ever. We just
No.
cruise, man. It's like the world's the Matrix and you're just cruising along. It's so cool. Yeah. We don't have to control stuff. It's hard to understand when you're new because you don't think that you're controlling everything. But once you do, you're like, who ate my spaghetti? Why is this food not gluten free? I don't like this pillow. Why do I have to room with this person? Like, we're just freaking controlling everything.
Yeah.
You just sit back and just let it all happen. Like it's so easy. And you know what? We've tried to control things for, depending on your age, 5 years, 2 years, 10
Mhm.
years, 20 years, and everything still turned out like shit. So might as well just, take the road less traveled and see what happens when you sit back and enjoy the ride.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
we think we control shit, but we actually don't control anything. That's the illusion, is that I'm controlling shit.
Yep.
And it's funny because, again, kind of going back to the God issue a little bit, even if you don't, again, have no belief system about that, whatever, like you said, just trust the process, keep doing the next indicated step. I have never seen anybody, whether they agree with the God issue or not had trust in the process, had shit work out, and have them go, that's weird. That's like 7 coincidences in a row. And then you just look at them like,
Yep. Hi.
oh, misfit. I am definitely not editing that part out. We have to have misfit on the podcast.
Almost got rid of him this morning.
I heard. I heard. Yeah.
Yeah, that's me not being very spiritual with this broken ankle. It's like I try not to think of myself too often, and with this ankle it's like um I have to take a bath. I can't shower. I can't drive. I need somebody to bring me groceries. Me, and it's just, why is the dog pulling me? I have crutches, and everything starts happening to me, and so I don't think I've been the most spiritual. And I was like, you pull too much. Yeah, I'm giving you away. But
It's okay. I had literally the exact same thing happen last night. So with my dog, we went to Costco and they have this toy. It's a giant dinosaur in what is like a flamingo inner tube, fluffy, squeaky
cool.
thing. It's awesome. So I gave it to him and I'm like, I love giving him the toys because I get to see this little piglet just be the most happy little thing ever,
Yeah.
until it's about 1 o'clock in the morning and he's dragging it up the ramp and he's squeaking it in the bed. And it's like, dude, I'm just trying to sleep, man. And then you fall out of that, like, oh, this was so precious and beautiful, to
You're
I just
annoying.
want to sleep. So
Yes.
actually, that brings up an interesting point. So, and I purposely want to deviate away from 12 step kind of
Yeah.
ideology, being human, right? That moment of like, yeah, normally I do pretty well, but then there are some days where I just fall out of this little spiritual whatever and I turn into this thing. How do you manage that experience? Just being human and having human experiences like that.
I mean, this time I can only talk about it as somebody who normally is grateful and happy, but I just almost laugh at myself. Or like today I was like, I got dark in my head. I was like, fuck this. This dog's going. I'm done with all of this. I hate this fucking ankle. And I was just like, ooh, I'm not very spiritual. And I almost just laugh at myself. I was walking the dog like a month ago, and there was a little baggie on the side of the road. And this is somebody who like works the steps at sponsees, grateful. I've had the same home groups, for 4.5 years. And I saw the baggie and I was like, ooh, I should pick that up and like taste what's in it. And like that's still my first thought. And then I just laugh and I'm like, yep, still need to keep doing the 12 steps.
Mm-hmm.
This daily thing is real. I could end up, strung out again with one, taking one day off from the program. So
And people, with that whole thing about like, oh, I need to be dependent upon program, blah blah blah. And this is where, even at a clinical lens, because people talk about like, oh, you shouldn't have the stigma of calling yourself an addict. I get it, but if you're anything like I am, I have this thing,
you're gonna
and
forget.
it, yeah, I'm gonna forget, and it's like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. It pops out, it has its own opinions, it does what it wants, and if I
Yep.
don't pay attention to that, it's gonna pop up and it's gonna do what it does, and then I'm like, Maggie Simpson with the plastic wheel thinking I'm driving the car and I'm actually probably in the trunk.
That's one thing that I did completely different this time because I was scared to call myself an alcoholic or drug addict or whatever terminology you want to use, whatever program. Because I had such a high profile career, which that's a whole other story, how I managed to have a high profile career with drug addiction. um, different story for another time. It was different this time because I just was like, now I'm 45 and I'm strung out, and I'm just going to be honest about who I am. I feel like if you don't talk about those things, or I don't need to tell every single person, but,
Yeah.
I'm open about it because I don't want to have shame with anything. Dude, shame can turn into not feeling good about yourself turns into self-pity, turns into I need to get high or drink so I don't feel this way anymore. It's like I just don't want to have any shame or soul sickness at all, because the second I start to feel anything like that, bad things can happen. And I've
And I think
witnessed.
people forget that when you talk about calling yourself an addict and an alcoholic, presuming that you're doing the work and stuff like that, right? It's
Yeah,
not this shameful, stigmatizing thing that
at
it once
all.
was. It's more of like a, I'd almost say like a mindfulness component of like, here's what's going on within me. I have this other side. It comes out. I deal with it. And actually, it just made me think about it. You know, dealing with the voices and stuff like that in the past, that was probably something that we got somewhat used to is like, oh, here's this other voice over here that has its own opinion.
Well, and if we're not thinking about ourselves anymore and I'm going to feel shame, I don't want to put a stigma on it. If we start thinking like, oh, this experience may help somebody else.
Yeah.
And so many times, even in skincare, not all of my clients know. They may now if they go on YouTube, but I've said like, oh, I'm in recovery. And every single person has been touched by this disease, and every single person has a story. And um, you know, especially in this day and age too. So
And
yeah.
that's why I tried starting this podcast and doing everything is because it's that in the middle stuff because everybody has been touched by it, right? In some that's actually part of the problem when you talk about having discussions with this because so many people have had so many experiences and they've been emotionally impacted by them. No shit, we do a lot of damage, we lose people, but it's about having these types of conversations to be able to discuss those things like I talk about, you had some auditory visual hallucinations, all that stuff. That happens, right? And somewhere between black and white dogma of go into the rooms, 12 steps will fix everything, and oh, you need a lifetime's worth of therapy and medications. Like there's a whole world of stuff in the middle. And that's where the conversations, in my opinion, the real beauty of everything is.
Yeah. Something I want to touch on, the therapy and working on those sorts of things. Like, how do we really know what's going on or what we need therapy for if we're using drugs and alcohol? So, 12 steps is amazing. Like, we can get freed up from our addiction, and then therapy can work on, if we have childhood trauma or other sorts of things. I personally have found that a lot the problems or things that I had carried have all been resolved through the 12 steps, but a lot of people have been through some horrible shit. And, but it's like, how can you work on that if you don't have like a clear mind and live in reality? So,
Right.
I think they all go hand in hand together.
And I think there's some simple therapy concepts too that if you haven't had some kind of a awakening or clarity for, you will abuse the shit out of like self-care. I remember when I was in treatment and I'd have, clinicians or somebody else be like, you need to practice self-care. And then you go through work a program and stuff like that. Like that's all I did was take care of myself for all these years.
Come on, you
Now,
are talking to an esthetician. So
yeah.
I don't know, a facial or two may help you.
Well, okay.
Self
But
care.
even that's what I mean about like hearing the concepts, right? Is that when if a therapist, if you're working on something else that is not drug and alcohol related, and the
Right.
therapist goes, "Hey, you might want to practice some self-care." It's
Right.
that awakening to be able to hear what they're actually saying to work on said issue, not just, "Oh, so you're telling me I just get to be selfish and do whatever the fuck
Go
I
get a
want?"
manicure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It.
All right. So with the last couple of minutes left, this is where I want to kind of, it doesn't have to be 12 step related, could be anything in the world. Your advice. So two parts, right? Your
Okay.
advice for somebody who is newly getting sober, just that in general. And then because of your unique experience, your advice to somebody who may be getting sober and also has some mental health stuff when you talk about, either schizophrenia or those auditory visual hallucinations, that type of stuff.
So neither of these two suggestions are easy to do when you're new, but they helped me, which was ask somebody to be my sponsor, get a commitment at a meeting. I mean, 4.5 years ago, at 45 years old, I was picking up cigarette butts and greeting people and completely insane, talking to the voices while people are walking up. Just be quiet for a second so I can say hello to these people. Because we end up super isolated, even if there's a bunch of people around us. Like we end up well, some of us don't have people around us. We are even in a closet getting high, but we end up really isolated. So just like connecting energetically with other human beings is big. Also having a commitment helped people expect me to be there. And if I wasn't, they would text me like, "Hey, where were you for your commitment?" So that for a newcomer, I would say ask somebody to be your sponsor. Find a meeting. It doesn't Your commitment doesn't last forever. It's like 6 months, and just pick up a commitment on a night that you know you can be consistent. And then people will start to see your face, and you'll get to see other people, and you'll start to make connections with the psychosis, schizophrenia, whatever you want to call it, even if there's other mental health things. I wouldn't suggest going to a meeting and sharing like for 25 minutes about the people chasing you down the road, but open your mouth and say, like, I hear voices or I'm dealing with this. If anybody has experience, come talk to me. You know what I mean? And that's scary as fuck. But I would just suggest doing it, or even going up to the secretary after the meeting, having a private conversation. Secretaries have a little more time sober and they know a lot of people in the program. And so they could connect you with somebody. I've had people reach out to me and say, "Hey, I have a sponsee, or I met somebody who has, the psychosis experience. Can I connect them with you?" And we seem scary when you're new, but we're not. Like, we're exactly the same. We just haven't gotten high for a lot longer. And, we're totally here to help anybody and talk
Yeah,
about anything. And, like, you're not alone. There is for sure somebody in the room that has experienced it. So just
absolutely.
starting to connect for
And
sure.
it's like when people are new and they come in and it's like, I love how you said, like, hey, we're just like you. We just haven't
Yeah,
used in a while. Like, and that's like the one safety net I would say when you are coming in is like, listen, if you want to have a conversation about how the fuck do I connect to quote unquote normal people,
yeah,
yes, that is something that we kind of learn to do. But at the very least, you talk about your tribe or whatever it is, just talk to the people that have been around for a little bit. I swear they'll start talking, you'll click, and it's like you
yeah.
guys speak the same language.
For sure. There's nobody who's more important, in charge, none of that. Like the secretary, there's nothing special about them. They just have been around and took that commitment. And when they're gone, somebody else is going to take it. Like there is no hierarchy. We're just like, hey, this shit worked for me. I've managed to stay sober and not have to use a substance to get out of myself. Like I actually like who I am, and my family does too. And I can show you what I did. Yeah. That's it.
I love it. Dana,
Yeah.
thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.